how are you guys doing? My name is Emmanuel Wara, and this video will be, a video to continue with our DevOps series, right? In fact, this is I'm with Trinity Consulting, and this video is a series of videos that we're putting together. It's on-demand videos that we're putting together for our DevOps lifecycle or DevOps pipeline. And today we're going to start looking at Git and GitHub. So that's what we will start looking at. So what is Git and what is GitHub? Now, when you look at the DevOps lifecycle, you basically are looking at how developers interact with operation folks. The operation folks are the people that helps to deploy and manage applications when developers are done with their building. So now we want to add with these training videos. The goal here is to look at the entire life cycle, start from when developers build the code using tools like Git and GitHub, and use Git to help them do what's called versioning. I'll be defining everything right now, and from GitHub and Git, then the code will go through the entire life cycle of DevOps. But let's start by looking at GitHub or Git, right? We're going to look at the difference between Git and GitHub, but we will start by first of all defining Git. Now, it says that Git is a versioning tool, right? It's a version management tool. So again, I'm old school. I like to write notes. I don't believe in presentations and all of that. I like to do the old school writing notes on a whiteboard and also doing illustrations. But so Git, right? Well, let's look at Git as a whole. Now, what is it? It's considered the most advanced version management, right? You can call it a version management tool, right? Version management tool, right? And you can also call it a source code control tool, right? Source control management tool. Source control management tool. It's also called a source control management tool as well. You can also, sometimes you see they will replace this with a code, right? Source code management tool. Now, if you're coming from the operation side of things, like you're a systems admin, you're not a coder. And this course is really designed for those that are systems administrators trying to learn DevOps, right? So we're not going to go into software development and anything, but sometimes we might do a little bit of coding, just some little minor, bit of coding just to help you understand the process. And sometimes I will show you guys how to use already existing codes to, show you how this works. But today's video is just a definition. So it is called a version management tool, right? And or a source code management tool. So which just means when developers are building software, right? Now, so let's just say you have a developer building a software. Now, let's say this is his computer right here, and that right there is the developer. And they're sitting here, for example, let's say they're using HTML to build a website, right? And they're writing their code and writing their code and writing their code. And once they write this code, then they have to save this code, because again, these codes are used to build the fabric of the website. So the developer builds the code and tests it and make sure that it's running. And once they build this code, then they compile, they put it together to form the software or to build a website. So once they're coding, then they always will have to take a snapshot or save their code. Now just imagine that the way it is that with Git helps them create a storage, which is called a repository, right? It is called a repository. and this storage is still in their local system. And every time they store this code, it goes there and it stores it in here. And this right here is called a version of that code. And it could be labeled whatever. Now, let's say there's, in GitHub, you can do something called a tag where you can just say, we label this version 1. And let's just say the guy's building that website, right? He's building the website, and the first thing he has done is to create the home page, right? So now that's the home page, and he's working on his home page, and he has saved that part of it, called, and labeled it version 1. So that's the first version. Now the saving is usually called committing, which you will see later, right? So he saves it, and he calls it version 1. And this website, if it's just like actually created a home page. The home page looks beautiful, right? It just looks beautiful like that. And maybe there's nothing on it. And then the next day, he starts to add content in here. So he's adding content, and he adds a picture. And then he wants to save this again, but also wants to make sure that the previous version that was saved is still there, just in case he wants to go back to the previous version. So he might save this and call it version 2. So version 1 was just the home page that was created with no content on it. Version 2 is now the same home page, but now with content. So that is really what versioning is. And he can create a list, right? He can create a list of different versions, like you see here. He can keep saving or committing versions upon versions while he keeps going, and he can always come back to each version. So let's say at some point he decides to go back to version 1, right? And see and start again from there. Maybe what he has done with this version 2, he doesn't like it, or maybe his boss has sent it and says, nah, that's not where we're going. So instead of him starting from scratch again, he can just go back to his version 1 commit, or and then open it up and then start again to redesign the website. And so that's really what versioning is all about, right? So when we talk about versioning, we're talking about version control. Sometimes they'll call it, right, version control, which really Git is the best tool that is used for that. Version control actually involves tracking and logging changes made to your code or text file as the project progresses. So that's version control. So now we create, every time you save or you commit, it creates a version. Git is designed to be able to manage all of those versions and keep them. You can revert or roll back to a previous version. You can go to another version. And that is what Git is really known for. It's amazing, in doing that. Again, now you can also go back, like I said, with Git, you can go back to the earlier snapshots and review your code and also make changes to your code. Now let's talk about Git, right? Let's talk about Git. Like, this is also we're talking about, like, every time you define Git, when they define Git, they're always talking about, you will hear those, it's a version control, or it's used for version management, it's used for source control management, source code management, whatever. But now let's talk about Git. Let's talk about Git. Let's talk about Git. Now, Git itself, right? The Git software, it was created, right, in 2005. So this was built in 2005 by a very famous guy that we all know. Now, if you're a graduate from Trinitech or you're going to Trinitech, you're going through our systems admin course, we have talked about this genius, and it was created by Linus Torvalds, right? Linus Torvalds, and Linus Torvalds is the father of Linux. Now, he's the founder of Linux. Now, the main work that he did, right, to build this took him about 10 days, right? So what had really happened was that before Git, they had another, right? They had another source control tool that they used back in the days, which again, Linus Torvald was using to to help build his Linux software. Was called BitKeeper, right? BitKeeper was a source control management tool which was very popular. BitKeeper was an open source. Now remember, Git is open source. Git is an open source freeware, which just means it's free to the public. You don't have to pay any money for it. Open source means the source codes are open to the public as well, and you can go in there and see what's going on with it and just use it. But BitKeeper back in the days, which was the most popular one, was an open source freeware. And so Linus Torvald, I listened to an interview that he had about his Git. Linus Torvald had limitations with BitKeeper, lots of limitations. And so friends of his, they try to adjust BitKeeper to meet, to help with their limitations, but then that led to a conflict with the vendor of BitKeeper. I think the guy, there was a problem, he thinking that it's an infringement on his code. So now, Linus Torvald decided to one day just take time off and just go build his Git application. And from what I understand, what I heard was that he's built the foundation of Git just for one day. He took just one day to build the foundation and announced it. Right, the groundwork, the platform was built, and then within 10 days it was all set. And then after that, he started adding other things to it to make it even more better. And today, it is the best source control management tool that's out there. Again, like I said, Git is an open source freeware, right? So Git is open source freeware, and I already explained what an open source freeware is. It just means it's free to the public and the source code is open to any developers to see what was used to build the fabric of Git. Git is installed and maintained on your local system, right? So you installed and maintain, right, on a local system, which is really cool. You don't even need internet to be able to work with Git. You can work with Git locally, and it is very robust, right? Very robust. It has very robust tools called the branching model. Comes with its branching model, which is good. And we're going to talk about branching model as we start looking deeper into Git, which just means that you can actually start a project, for example, building that website, like building on the homepage, and then you can branch it out and have maybe somebody working on the service page, or you working on the service page, but using another branch of the project, not the main one. And that could be separate from your main project. And the branching model of Git is quite amazing because it helps like a lot of people work in a team using different branches. So you can work on different aspects of your project using branching it out, using people working on different branches, and at the end of the day, then you guys merge everything into that one big project, and that's what Git is really known for. It makes Git really, really amazing. And so you install Git on your local system, you create a local storage called a repository, and Git can also be used as a distributed version management tool. Distributed just means instead of you working by yourself, Git has the ability to have people work as a team, and that's really why it was built in the first place, to deal with things like that, to have several different people, not only in the same environment, they could be all over the world, working on their individual repositories of the same project, and later on combining or merging everything together. So that's Git, right? So again, Git is an open source freeware application that is installed on and maintained on a local system, right? It has a local repo that is managed and is basically used for versioning. That is the key point, versioning. And I explain what versioning is all about. You're working on your code, you can be saving different versions as you go. So you save the versions you create. As you save, you can save and create several versions, and these versions can be managed by Git, and you can always revert to a previous version. It's a powerful aspect of the software and helps. And the fact that Git is distributed, it's a distributed version control management tool, just means you can have several different branches of Git, several different local repo for those that are working on it, and they can work on different aspects of your project, and then later on can be merged together. We're going to look at that as we go deeper into the technical aspect of Git and how to install and get Git to work. Now, then there's the GitHub, right? So GitHub. Now, GitHub is basically, an online, it is a cloud-based Git repository, right? Hosting services. So which just means Git has its own local repo, but you can basically use GitHub to extend the repo of Git into the cloud, right? So again, GitHub, right, is a cloud. So GitHub is a cloud-based. It is a cloud-based Git repo. Now, if you hear me say repo, just know it's short form for repository, repo hosting service. So it is a GitHub, it's a cloud-based Git repo hosting service, which means you basically can have your repo locally and then migrate that repo into the cloud. And so now what happens now once you do that is that now allows you to keep track and share your Git version control project outside of your local system, which means that's what helps you to work with other people, right? So for you to easily work with other people, you can basically set it up like this and put your repo out in the cloud with GitHub and Git. People can even download your repo, right? They can pull your repo, download it into their own local repo and work on it and put it back to the public one. So that way people all over the world can work on the same project, right? So now, but one thing you have to know about GitHub, which is quite interesting, just imagine you having this storage in the cloud that you can, use. And there are ways to basically use GitHub to set up websites. That way you don't have to pay for hosting service. You have a free website in the cloud, which is part of this Git series. You will see how we can do that. But the basic functionality of GitHub is free, right? Basic functionality is free. But then there are some advanced features of GitHub that requires you to pay a fee. So that's one thing you need to know. So again, this right here is our, definition of Git versus GitHub. Again, what have we learned? We have learned that Git is a version management system. It's open source freeware that can be installed on your local system, right? It comes with a local repo used for versioning. Now, once you build code and you save or commit your code, Git helps you to create different versions that you can manage later, and you can go back to previous versions and adjust them. That's Git. Now, but with GitHub is that cloud base. It's a cloud based tool that helps you to transfer your local repo into the cloud. So you can create repos out there in the cloud and then transfer content from your local repo into that public repo, and still the versioning still stay put even when you upload the content of your local repo into the cloud repo in GitHub. It shows you the different versions. Now that makes it easy for the distributed feature of GitHub, where lots of people can now work on that repo And people can pull information from that public repo down to their local repo, and can also push information from their local repo or to the public repo. So that's what you need to know about Git and GitHub. We're going to proceed. We're going to continue with, in the next video, we're going to install Git and configure it, and then also install GitHub and set it up and then link them together. So hope you enjoyed this video, and see you in the next video.